Hey guys, today I interview Cade Cole. I don't need to do an introduction for Cade. I've had him on the show a bunch of times. We talk about his recent video called Archaic. Go check it out. Here's the thumbnail, kind of gives you the whole thing. Cade by himself, riding a horse bareback, minimal gear, no fire starter, no food, goes on this pretty hardcore wilderness elk hunt with his recurve, kills a bull, self-films it all. Epic. We talk about what was difficult. We talk about the gear. We talk about the mentality of elk hunters who quit during similar hunts. Obviously, hunts that you're well equipped for, but there's still this issue that a lot of folks deal with out there in terms of quitting. So we dive deep into that. I recommend for any future elk hunt that's going to be tough, watch that video beforehand, and you're going to think about it during that hunt and how you have no reason to quit. Anyways, guys, interesting conversation. A lot of takeaways that are going to make you a way better elk hunter. And the last thing I'll mention is that Cade and I are doing some backpack spring bear hunts in the Selway this spring. Go check them out at pursuitwithcliff.com. There's info on there. They're going to be progressive backpack hunts. If you're somebody who just wants to get into backpack hunting, newer hunter or somebody fairly experienced, it's going to be very much a skill set learning environment in combination with the hunt. So go check them out. Should be a ton of fun. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. I had a question from a guy who's like, he's like pretty experienced guy. And he kept wanting me to answer this question of like, hey, he's hunting wilderness areas, stuff that's fairly easy to draw, but I believe he's a Montana resident. So he's able to hunt some pretty good stuff every year, like in terms of quality. He's archery hunting and he's wanting to kill like a decent bull or a bigger bull each year. And I've had guys pick my brains on this before, and what he's wanting is some sort of like tactic where it's like, hey, how do I scout during the summertime, early, August, in a way where I can like find a big bull and then find him during the rut and kill him. And dude, like, I don't know if you have thoughts on it, Kate, but my thoughts on it are like, dude, from my experience hunting elk in the mountains, you can't. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But do you have
Yes.
different thoughts on it?
No. So this is a good one. No, I have an opinion on that because this bull that Casey Brooks just killed.
Guys, no excuses. All the stuff that I talk about on the podcast, all the stuff I talk about on YouTube, you can do it and you can do it with me. There's a bunch of hunting, fishing, spearfishing experiences on my website. Go to pursuitwithcliff.com. Right on the top on the menu, click experiences. It'll walk you through all the different options. These are trips oriented around making you better. It's about the skill set and it's about improving as an outdoorsman. So if that's you, that's what you want, go check them out and join me on the next one.
It's the same. It's kind of that same deal about like they've got sheds from that bull. You've seen that bull, right? It's like
Yeah.
480 inches or whatever.
Yeah.
So like,
This giant new world record.
yeah, you're taking an area that consistently produces big bulls.
Right.
And then they kind of have like a natural pattern and a lot of private land and stuff like that where they can kind of like shuffle back and forth. And so you're
Right.
able to watch these bulls and kind of pattern them over years and years and years. But the reality of it is, I think that there's a lot of guys that are trying to figure out, like, oh man, how can I do that on public land in like Colorado or Wyoming or Montana or any of these states where it's like rugged shit. Like those elk are
Yeah.
so far buried. Like you're saying, it's impossible. That bull's
Right.
buried. And then in the summer, he travels so far, come rut, and he's rutting and he's breeding cows that are like a crazy amount of distance away from where he summered, and like he's breeding them at night and all this. And it's like it's
Right.
impossible for you to like. What I can say is that like some of the sheds that I pick up on bulls out here in the spring. I'm in DuBois, Wyoming. I've picked up sheds. 2 years ago, I picked up a set of sheds that I happened to see on the internet, a bull that was killed in Cody
Yeah.
the next fall. So like that bull traveled 100 miles, like as a crow flies through the mountains to
Right.
rut. Like your ability to like track those bulls down is so
Yeah.
marginal.
Dude, I've seen the same thing, Cade, and I've seen the same thing even within September too. Like
Yeah.
bulls move 8-10 miles in September. I think they get the shit beat out of them somewhere and they just start roaming, and they show up in another group of cows or whatever. So I find that really common. I've the same thing. When I actually told this individual Tony when he asked me the question, like I have found sheds in the flat tops, like in the middle of the thick of where we hunted, and I know for a fact we had never seen that bull alive during hunting season in that area. And it's not like this isn't somewhere where I hunted for 5 days. It's like somewhere I hunted basically for 60 days straight. And
Right.
that bull, he did not live in that area during hunting season his entire life. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
it's like, but he came in there and he shed there multiple years. It's like they're patternable in a bigger picture sense, but during the season, it doesn't matter. It doesn't like what you saw in summer is fucking irrelevant.
Right. Unless you're somewhere that's like, one of these areas where these elk are leaving from like national forest straight to a subdivision and then back out.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's not
Yep.
natural. Like Jackson Hole kind of has that going on here in Wyoming, that you've got elk that, you know, they're up in the winter range on the refuge and people can see them and take pictures from the highway and all that. But then they figured out like, oh man, if I cross the road and go behind the airport, then like nobody shoots at me.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll just live
Sure.
here. And it's like, well, yeah, those bulls are like pretty easy to pattern. And I think that gives like a pretty bad optic on the entirety of elk, especially when you have people that figure out how to kill a bull like that, but it's not the norm, like you're
No,
saying.
yeah, yeah. I think that's the key. It's not really like the norm. And bulls for sure will come back to the same spot like year after year. I've seen
Yeah.
that. Like I've
Oh
seen
yeah.
the same. Basically seen like the same bachelor group of bulls show up in the same pocket. After the rut. Maybe maybe we killed one bull, and the next year, there was 6 bulls the year before, and the next year you go back in there and there's like 3 of them left, and they're coming back into the same little hole. You know
Right.
what I mean? But that's different than being like, "Oh, I got all these trail cameras up. I watch them during the summer, and then I can hunt them during the hunting season." Like what's weird, Kate, is I don't like from the wilderness perspective. Like all the outfitters I know that hunt wilderness now, wilderness that barely gets hunted or remote areas that barely get hunted because they're high draw, it's a little bit different. But like in general, the guys that are doing lots of elk hunting, guiding lots of elk hunts, outfitting a lot of elk hunts, they all of them are of this opinion, dude. Like they don't really know what they have. They just go elk
Yeah.
hunting,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah. And
know.
I've had years, man. I had a year like, man, I don't know. This was maybe back in like 2015 or something, that I had this guy miss this like beautiful 6x7, and he
Yeah.
missed him, and it was my last hunt of the year, and he missed him, and he ended up like 2 days later shooting a 6 point, and all I could think was like, next year that bull is going to be massive,
Yeah,
and
sure.
I never, it's not like anybody else was hunting back there. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
man, I look for that bull the next year and the next year and the next year. And like, he's just gone. Like,
Yeah,
I'd never seen that bull before. I'd never seen that bull since. And he was pretty memorable.
sure.
Like he had a crazy split G4 on his right side. I mean, it was like a perfect, so it's like
Right.
you would remember a bull like that. So where did he come from and where did he go? I don't know. He's like the Cotton Eye Joe bull.
They just popped up there for some reason. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's just the reality of it, dude. It's distorted by social media stuff. Well, it's distorted by social media stuff, and then the problem I think, Kate, is like there's a big correlation to patternable elk in this sense and really big elk. Like if you get into areas in Arizona where not necessarily just Arizona, but they're real water dependent, it's totally different ball game. And those happen to be areas that because they're resource limited, it's different than like where you're hunting, where I've hunted most of the time. They manage the elk so tightly that the bulls are huge. So what you have in social media is you have guys patterning giant bulls, killing giant bulls, and they have this like they're able to do the trail cam thing and then just like roll right into killing them. But that's a very small segment of elk hunting, but it gets like a lot of exposure.
Right, yeah, and it's unfortunate because like I saw that a lot in like South Central Idaho's kind of got the same thing going on. Where you got a lot of cattle ranches and stuff, and it's like you got
Yep.
monster bull elk, and they're living on private property, and they're drinking from the same water troughs that the cattle are drinking from. And then you have this guy, and he's got his landowner tag, and then he goes and he shoots a monster bull, and they'd be like, "Oh man, well this guy's got like 5 bulls he's killed over 350." And it's like, well, the average guy just really doesn't have like those
Yeah, it's
odds
different.
in
Yeah.
his favor. It's just
Yeah.
the way it
It's
is.
it's different, and I don't think you care either. Like, I don't really judge people for it. Like, I could care less, Cage, you know what I mean? Like, what guys wanna do or whatever. To me, the issue is that it's like people tend to focus on something that for their type of hunting is kinda irrelevant. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like, well, it's like, dude, if I try to, like, let's take Jay Scott, who, he's spent tons of time hunting Arizona, guiding Arizona. If I took the tactics that Jay did, like when we were both outfitting heavy, he's outfitting in Arizona and I'm outfitting in the flat tops of Colorado. Like, the two different areas and like the units we're hunting are managed so drastically different. Like, they're the two far ends of the spectrum, right? If if Jay hunted like I did, he'd be way, way, way less effective at killing big bulls. He'd kill bulls, but he'd be way less effective at finding like the biggest bull in the unit. But if up in the flat tops I hunted like he did, it wouldn't work at all. You know what
right.
I mean? Like, I'm talking like in a general sense, like this, like within this framework, right? Like, of course, elk are elk and vocalizations are vocalizations, but I mean just in terms of like strategy. If I spent all my time in the flat tops, like looking at my game camera pictures and being like, oh well, on this alpine lake, this bull was hanging out there in August 5th. It's freaking irrelevant to the type of hunting I was doing. It wouldn't matter. It like almost be misleading, you know?
Right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Becomes a goose chase. Yeah, I don't know,
yeah.
man. I think that it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate across the board that for as much as social media has done for hunting and getting people out there and all that, it's definitely become a lot of a pissing contest in a lot of aspects where you really are comparing apples to oranges because there's a lot of places where there's a lot of value in certain tags, and if you go, man, if you go hunt Colorado and you kill a bull elk, congratulations, like you killed a
Yeah,
bull
sure.
elk. And I
Mhm.
wish that more people appreciated it in that aspect because it is like it's such a hard endeavor all the way around, and I hate that social media has kind of made it seem like every guy that kills an elk kills a 300 plus inch elk, and that's just not reality.
Yeah, yeah. Well, dude, it's and this will be like I don't know what I'm going to do with what we've been talking about so far, Cade, but we'll get into the point of having you on here, dude. But it's funny, dude, because you keep saying like it's unfortunate, and I know why you say it's unfortunate because when you think of elk hunting, you think of the same nostalgic type of elk hunting that I grew up around, right? The kind of outfitting that in hunting and stuff that my dad did, like that the old time mountain guys did, riding horses up way into the mountains, finding elk, not knowing anything really about like the individual elk or anything like that, just going elk hunting, like going on like an expedition elk hunt. That's what you think elk hunting is.
Yeah, yeah,
And I do too. And the thing is like that's the type of elk hunting that's actually most available to the normal dude. You know what I mean? Um, but it's the type of elk hunting that is like camouflaged outside of social media because dude, it's like chicks tits and asses on Instagram or whatever, right? It's the exact same trigger for dudes and I don't know what it is, but uh, a picture you put up of a 380-inch bull will always get 10 times the amount of clicks and views and shit than like a raghorn in the most beautiful, epic
right,
landscape on planet Earth. It just will. Like, and I mean, dude, I'm more likely to stop on it too. Like, I'm not denying that,
right, right, right.
but it's like creates this super distortive effect, man. Where yeah, and it's I don't really know if it's a I I don't know if I have a strong judgment, Cade. And if you do, like, I want to hear like your perspective. I don't have a strong like moral judgment or whatever, but it's super distortive to people who are getting into elk hunting because it takes them like 4 years to figure out like, oh, this is actually what it's. the reality of it, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard, like I think that I don't know, I just have a lot of love and appreciation for how hard elk hunting can be. And I mean that's the whole point of it, right? Is if it was super easy, then I wouldn't have any interest in doing it. I'd go find some other hobby. And so
Right.
yeah, I think that's why for me, like I say that it's unfortunate that people don't really necessarily uh have the perceived value maybe that they should because of social media. But like, like the past 3 years, not counting this fall, I killed over 1,000 inches in bulls. But
Mhm.
this bull I got this year with my recurve is tiny, dude. He's a little 5 point, but
Yeah.
is by far, my proudest elk. I'm never gonna have an elk that I'm probably more proud of than this bull because I worked my ass off for it. So it's like the horns on the wall, the size of the antlers don't really mean anything, considering like the size of the hunt and its like wholeness in my mind. You know what I'm saying? Like that
Sure.
memory is gonna last way longer than if I had shot a 400-inch bull right out of the truck.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. So this is perfect like transition to your video, dude. Guys, biltong, okay? I have been obsessed with this stuff for 3 or 4 years. Ever since I got on a keto, carnivore, paleo-esque type of diet, I've had a hard time finding healthy snacks. Biltong is a great option, particularly the slabs that have this fat on the side. That's where your energy is if you're a fat burner like me. Super simple ingredients in this, guys. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ingredients. Compare that to your gas station jerky. A great snack in the backcountry or just day to day. Biltong Depot is a huge supporter of my content. Go to their website, biltongdepot.com. Use my discount code CLIFFG, CLIFFG for 15% off at checkout and to support this content. Thanks, guys. And the reason is Cade, like what you just said, a lot of people say, but in some sense they like don't really back it up, right? Like people are like, "Oh, I'm all about the experience. Don't I don't have to kill a big bull or whatever." But from what I've seen, a lot of people will still be like, "Well, if there's an easy experience with the easy chance at a big bull, I'll take that over like doing like the really hard hunt."
Right.
But in this case, your video, man, on YouTube that you just posted up, Archaic, right, is the name of it.
Yep. Yep.
So it's like proof that you're actually embracing that because you did do like the world's hardest elk hunt. And like you just said, you didn't kill a giant bull, but you killed a decent bull with your
I killed a
recurve.
bull.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which is what matters in the freaking craziness of this hunt, dude. So first off, I want to tell everybody they should go watch the video. You did a great job, dude. But give people the framework, man. Because you had been actually you'd mentioned this story or mentioned this goal to me several times. In the back of my head, I'm like, oh, dude, Cade's a fucking masochist. You know what I mean? But go ahead, give the framework of what your goal with this hunt was.
Yeah, man. So since I was a little kid, I always used to like read and think about like all the natives. I mean, across the world. I'm talking about like back to the Vikings. Everybody. I was obsessed with like primitive people, and I always thought it was really cool that like, man, it really sucks to be outside when it's cold and wet and miserable. And now we have all this awesome equipment to aid in that. But ever since I was a kid, I always thought like, man, I would love to try to see what that's like, to try to live like people did before we had it so easy. And so over the years, guiding elk hunts and everything, I kind of seen, a lot of different success and failures and this and that. And I kind of, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I started thinking in my head, I want to try to bareback into the mountains just to try to like do it as primitive as I can with no tools, with just my bow and a knife and a couple of horses and just go in and try to build all my fires by hand and try to kind of do all this stuff and just see like, can I find any success at all? Like,
Sure.
at all. And so, yeah, I ended up randomly in a weird stroke of luck. I ended up getting on alone, and it kind of gave me like a little tiny taste of that. But it was like really frustrating for me because there's so many rules and there's so many little boundaries and things like that, and it just felt really unnatural. And that's when the fire really got lit. And I thought, okay, like now I know what I want to do and how I want to do it. So I'm going to bear back in with no tools, and I'm going to try to kill
Hey,
a bull elk.
Kate, tell people what you mean by bareback because a lot of guys are not
Oh
big
yeah,
into
yeah, yeah,
horse
yeah,
stabbing and stuff.
yeah. So like, no saddle. I did bring a pad. You bring a
Mhm.
bareback pad, and mainly the pad is for the safety of the horse. It just keeps me from soring their wither.
Sure,
But I had one pad on the horse's back that kind of strap around, and then it gave me a little bit of cushion for the first little bit. But not having a saddle to rely on, and for anybody that's ever pulled a pack string before, would probably understand, and people that don't, you can imagine, trying to pull another horse and carry a bow and steer a horse without a saddle is like a massive pain in the ass. It's a massive pain in the ass.
yeah,
So I'm trying to drag a pack horse. I did bring a pack saddle, so that I could carry, because like trying to self film is so hard. I had 3 tripods. I had three
sure.
cameras. Well, I had more than that. I think I had 4 5 cameras, a bunch of batteries and all that. I brought my coat and a knife, and I had an elk hide that I tanned for a blanket because I thought that would be a little more authentic. I did also bring a wool blanket, and it helped a lot
And,
because
yeah, and no food.
no food, no food. I
Yeah,
didn't bring any food at all, and no fire starter, which actually proved to be a pretty big challenge over it because we had some snow, and everything that I thought I would be able to light for tinder, did not want to light really until I finally found some old man's beard. So my first night out there, it was pretty cold. It dropped way below freezing, and I could not get a fire going to save my life. So literally to save my life. So,
sure.
but
But that's the framework. So you wanted to basically get as close to like back in the day type of elk hunt. Like somewhere between like the first like well, natives and the first mountain guys. That's
kind of,
basically like kind of the hunt you were doing.
yeah, like a mashup, because I
Yeah.
thought, okay, like it'll be a little more challenging being that I don't have a team of other hunters to help me,
Yeah.
but I'll also have the comfort of like a wool blanket and then wool clothes. I did have
Yeah,
some
yeah.
comfortable clothes. I had my Schnee boots on. I did
Sure.
bring my nice boots.
Yeah, so you had a few things, and I want to dive into that a little bit because I'm sure people will be curious on the gear front. Like you're going super minimal gear, and so you made some choices, that made sense. But dude, it's funny you mentioned the one like you're solo versus like how we probably used to hunt, dude. I mean, I imagine like if this was 300 years ago, like if some native guys saw you all by yourself out there, they'd be like, "Oh, dude, that guy, people must really hate that guy because he's
Yeah.
gonna be freaking struggling." Because they hunted together a lot. They
Oh,
had to, and they had to have just like imagine the hassle of like just getting the meat out without anybody else, even if you had stock. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah. Oh yeah,
Pretty tough.
massively hard.
Yeah.
And that's something that I thought about and I reflected on a lot while I was doing the hunt,
Yeah.
because there was 3 times at least that I had the elk, and it's all alpine, and they're in the rocks, and there's a little bit of cover, but there's these little like veins of little water, drain offs, and
Hmm.
I'm like, man, if I had 2 other guys and we could spread out in the drainages, it would be
Somebody's
a
gonna kill
slam
it.
dunk. Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody's going to shoot an elk. Like it's a slam dunk. But
Yeah.
when you're trying to do it by yourself, you pick the wrong one every time. I swear you pick the wrong one every time.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, did you have because I don't want to forget to ask you this later on. We're kind of going over the place, but I want to ask you right now. Because you were doing this like kind of primitive hunt, were there any other things that struck you, Cade? Like that's a good observation that I don't think somebody like if you would have done it with a rifle, you wouldn't have noticed that. You would have just shot one. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
But are there any other observations like that you were like, "Oh, dude, they must have hunted this way or that way because like this is hard." You know what I mean? Was there any other thing you noticed?
Yeah, you definitely, the probably the biggest like revelation to it is you realize, like especially as a guide, you realize how much you rely on calling elk, and I knew being late season that really wasn't going to be an option. But
Mhm.
when you're sitting there and you're kind of observing them like that, you realize just how much value you would have had with more guys, and that your archery elk hunting like in a primitive setting like that would have been 100% like a sit and wait East Coast
Yeah.
style like ambush hunt. Like you would
Yeah.
never be, because the stalking portion, and I showed a little bit of that in the film, but it blew up in my face a couple times that I could get really close. I could get to like 50 yards, and then I'm finally just out of room and I get blown. But if I
Yeah.
had multiple guys, like I was saying, to sit on those drainages, or if I could just afford to sit and I had a village of people that were feeding me, eventually,
Yeah.
it might take 3 days, but I would definitely get one.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, I think that's a huge one, Katie, because I think you're like right on point, dude. I think these guys, they had to have like they see the elk, and then like whoever the quietest guy was, they're like, all right, you stalk. The rest of us are gonna go to that path where they might go, that path where they're going. And if you scare them and don't kill one, when they run by, we're just gonna chuck as many arrows into them as possible.
Right.
I think that's what they did. I mean, that had to been the go-to
Yeah.
method.
Yeah. I think everything
Yeah.
was just like an ambush, basically,
Yeah.
Very different from how we're doing it for sport nowadays as far as archery hunting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, totally a totally different thing. You hit on the one that's the big question to me though, dude. Being hungry. Um being and so you've dealt with this outside of this, like on your alone experience, me and you have talked about it a bunch and that sort of thing. I hate being hungry, Cade. And it's of my opinion, and this is like totally in the commercialized modern world of hunting, making a living as an outfitter guide, like totally the other end of the spectrum of what you did on this hunt. I hate it when guys are not eating because I think they don't hunt as well, and I think that they tend to quit more readily when they're not eating. But I know people like I've heard back in the day. I heard Remy Warren talk about like he would always hunt hungry, and he thought like it actually helped. So where are you on that, man? Like what are your thoughts?
Man, that's like I hate that so much. It's like the dumbest thing when people say like not to shit on Remy, but like I hate that. The whole like, oh, I hunt better hungry. No, you don't. You're dumb when you're hungry, man. Like
Oh,
you're
okay, so
so
that's
you're
your
so dumb when you're hungry. You know what I mean? You know how it is. You go all day without eating and you try to do you're like, oh man, where did I set that? Whatever.
yeah, oh yeah,
But now you're in the woods with a weapon and you're like tripping over stuff and yeah, the hunger aspect is strange because like it, it it was definitely it was part of the challenge of the hunt. It's not like a proactive part of it. Like I definitely don't hunt better because I'm hungry. It's just an added challenge to the fact. But I definitely can feel myself making bad decisions, and I can feel myself just being clumsy. It's a detriment to your hunting across the board, and I think that's why it's super important that guys do stay like properly fed and properly hydrated. That's a big battle. I went like 30 hours without water out there during that hunt, and it's just like it wrecks your ability. I'm trying to stalk, and I'm like, where normally I would be pretty sneaky. I'm tripping over rocks and stuff, and I'm just like, it's just really does not take very long for a little bit of hunger and a little bit of dehydration to like take hold of you,
yeah,
and really be a detriment.
yeah. Just in general, just weakens you as a person for sure. I
Yeah.
think, yeah. So yeah, I hear you, and you more than anybody has had a good chance to like experience that. So it's interesting to hear that perspective on water, Cade. You didn't bring a filter.
No.
Yeah,
No,
but
I
but
actually.
but you did end up drinking water, I saw in the video. Go over, like, how you chose where to drink and that sort of thing.
Well, so yeah, so I've kind of always I grew up pretty close to Mexico, so
Mhm.
I've kind of always just had like a pretty good aversion to dirty water. but
Yeah,
um, but even then, like all of the stuff that I was hunting in that film, it's all alpine, like 10,000 feet plus the entire basically the entire film. So almost everything is like literally a glacier, and I can see the water running out from it. So I could
Yeah.
just find all those high spots to drink, and it's really cool. You get a lot of brain freezes, but that's another observation I guess I would say comes out of the film for me is you really take for granted not having a water container because
Mm,
like even when I was on alone, I had a water container, but doing this hunt, I had no way to carry water, and man, it's really difficult that these elk are they're constantly moving, they're up high,
sure.
they're not near water, you know. So if I'm taking all day, like I take all day to try to stalk these elk and I can't get it done, now it's a
Right.
massive venture for me to get to water just to be able to get a drink of water. And then, you try to drink as much as you can, then it just doesn't really, you feel satisfied and then you leave and you're like, oh man, I wish I had drank more water. Once you're like
Yeah.
a mile away.
Yeah, sure. So you end up feeling like you got to be really sticky to water all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's interesting, man. Because that didn't even cross my mind. In my mind, I was just thinking like it'd just be difficult to find decent spots to get it. I will say, kid, like I this is like a touchy one because people will squeak about it, but particularly when I was hunting above timberline in Colorado too, like there, like there's giardia around and that sort of thing. But when I was above timberline, like sheep and goat hunting in particular, I would drink unfiltered water all the time. Like I would. The thing is I think there's a little bit of a lost uh like art of being like, okay, if I'm drinking water that's literally squirting out of the rocks, like I'm not talking about like a stream that a marmot could shit in or elk could be shitting in above me. I'm talking about like a spring, and I acknowledge like I'm using a little like mountain man knowledge to know that no, this is a true spring, like it's coming out of the thing. Like I would drink that all day. I'm not gonna get sick.
Yeah, I think
You
it's
know what
like
I
the
mean?
best water on the planet too.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's weird. It's like a weird thing that we've done, where it's like everybody has to filter everything. And dude, people are gonna be like, "You're a fucking idiot." You know what I mean? But
Yeah, I got some. There was some comments. I forget somebody shared. I forget what it was. Somebody shared my thing and the film, and there were some comments on that being stupid and all that. I mean,
yeah,
it comes with the territory. But I don't know. The water thing really never really bothered me because you can build up, like an aversion. You can build up an immunity to Giardia and all that by ingesting little bits of dirty water. You don't want to just like go 0 to 100 drinking nothing but dirty water. But I mean, you think about it, like we didn't filter water for hundreds of thousands of years, and now everybody's just their bodies are so fragile because they haven't tried to like maintain that ability to be able to drink raw water.
yeah. So for sure, there's like tons of bacteria that people do get used to. Like you mentioned, Mexico and stuff like that. Like there's, I was actually just talking to my brother. He had been in oh gosh, it's I forget which country, but everybody he went and climbed a mountain somewhere in
Yeah,
South America, and everybody got sick from the water, but the locals don't have any problem with it, which is pretty normal in Mexico too. A lot of them do drink tap water because they're used to the contaminants in it. I mean, there are some that for sure, like if if I've gotten giardia twice. Have you ever had it before, Cade?
yeah, twice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Ironically, I got it one time from a textbook example of it, like drinking water from a spot that probably had beaver exposure somewhere above the stream. Like I just got myself into a dumb situation. And ironically, I got it when I was really young. I got it from town water that had been contaminated. And like tons of us got it, like my whole family got it.
yeah,
Which is kind of hilarious to me. You know what I mean? Like,
right, right.
people are so concerned about filtering your spring, at 12,000 feet, but then yeah, then one of the times I got it was out of a town water system, so it's kind of which is nowadays I think almost non-existent. I mean, it was a long time ago, but but yeah, it's not fun at all. But uh, yeah, how did you get it? Just drinking water?
Just drinking bad water in the mountain. One
Yeah,
time I was drinking it, I knew it was gonna hurt me, but I was like, I was kind of dumb. But it had like a film on top of the water. You could like
yeah,
see the film. It wasn't
gross.
moving. I was just really
Yeah,
thirsty.
yeah,
You know, so I'm
yeah.
like, oh, the horses are drinking it, and that's what the meme said was okay. You know, so I
Yeah, right.
drink that.
Yeah. I mean, that's not, I mean, as far, I don't know, Cade, but I don't, Giardia in particular, I don't know that you build up a tolerance to it. I don't know the answer to that one, but like you say, a lot of the other stuff you can,
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. So, I mean, people should be careful about it, but I think it's just one of those things that is a little bit, it's a little bit, I'm sure it's just because like lawyers and everything else. And I'm not saying that people should go out and drink unfiltered water,
Right, yeah. It's just not the
but you know,
boogeyman.
yeah, 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 it's like one of those things, but I in your video, I was like, "Oh, yeah." I actually, when I saw you drinking, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, people are gonna bust his balls about that one." You know what I mean? Like, all this stuff. It's kinda funny. But, dude, let's talk about the gear that you wore, because you had pretty minimal. So what did you wear, Cade?
So I'll start from the bottom down. I think I had a pair of Darn Tough socks, just regular old Darn Tough socks,
Yeah,
and I wore my Schnee Bear Tooths, and then I've got a pair of Carhartt canvas pants. They're fleece
okay.
lined, and I just wax those with otter wax, and that's kind of like what I use for a lot of my like hunting pants. I think I wore them when we were doing those bear hunts together.
Mhm.
Um, and then for the upper layer, I had base layers on. And then for my upper layer, I'm trying to think, I had a button up, like tweed wool shirt, and I had just that brown fleece sweater, and then a wild rag, and then I had a red wool rich coat that I would wear mainly just to sleep in.
Yeah, so kinda
Um,
like old school hunting gear.
yep, that's
Right.
kind of where I want to go. I didn't want to appropriate any cultures, and I look stupid in buckskins and all that, so I thought like I'll just throw on the wool coat and it'll be good enough.
I got you. And then you in tool wise, I saw that you had the knife that you typically wear. Um, is that the only knife you brought?
Yeah, yeah, that was the only knife I brought. And yeah, it did okay. It did okay. I mean, by the time I got that up cleaned, it was toast. But I mean, if you can get one bull elk out of one blade, I feel like that's a pretty good knife. That's like
Yeah.
that should be a good metric that you should have on the box. Like, will clean one elk. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That is a hilarious thing, Cade, because I have people always message me on knife stuff that they're like, "Oh, I did 3 animals with my knife and it's still sharp." And I'm like, That's I just don't buy it. The one exception that I've seen, man, is those, the old Cutcos. Have you ever used one of those?
Oh boy, yeah,
Yeah,
I got one.
you can get through a bunch of elk on it because that serration, you know, pulls those cutting edges up away from the bone and stuff. So, like, you can do multiple elk with it, but man, most fixed blades, like just a normal beveled knife, I 1 elk is like a max,
Yeah,
you know?
I'll die on that hill. I fight anybody about that. Like you aren't cleaning three elk with the same knife and not sharpening it. I mean, it's just not happening. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like
No, I agree. Dude, I noticed that you carry your knife in a cross draw on your back. And I used to carry my knife in a cross draw actually on my side, like on
um,
across me. I used to do it when I was wearing chaps a lot. You know what I mean, Cade, when I was packing a lot because then the tip of my knife wouldn't always be under my chaps. So I could just like, and it made sense to me. But the way you carry your knife on the kind of the small of your back,
mhm.
um, do you find that annoying when you have a backpack on?
No, it's actually pretty comfortable for me with a backpack on. I hike with it and everything, and I'm used to it. I've had that knife on my back. I had that knife custom built in like 2017, maybe something like that. And then a friend of mine made the sheaths for it too, and I've been wearing it. I mean, literally every single day I wear it for, you know, yeah, the past like man, I don't know what that been 8 years or something like that. And
Sure.
yeah, it's really comfortable. I prefer it on my back like that. Um, actually for the main reason, just so that I can cut my breakaways if I ever have a
Hmm.
horse wreck. So it's, I don't know. I just got used to carrying it like that. And honestly, I have a back injury from playing football in high school. And I swear that like having that knife on my back, like at an angle, like when my pack squeezes my back, if I cinch it real tight, I think it almost like helps a little bit. I don't know
Oh,
how to
like
explain it.
yeah, it kind of gives you like more structure
It's
against
like,
like your
yeah, it's like a
lumbar.
little lumbar pressure right there where my
Yeah.
back hurts, so I can cinch it up real tight, and then it kind of helps for heavy pack outs.
Yeah, yeah, I got you, dude. I know just seeing where you wear it, there's no way that I could wear it there because I actually take my belt off. Like when I put a heavy pack on, like it's loaded with meat, I'll actually take my belt off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and even if I don't have a knife on my belt. But it sounds like I mean for you, yeah, maybe that's why, or maybe it's just like a different, different
I don't know.
perspective
Maybe
on the
just
comfort of
used to
wearing
it.
it.
I probably take my knife and belt off and be like, "Why haven't I done this?" You know?
Nah. I mean, you're probably used to. The thing is, dude, I like it's funny, Cade, because like a lot of guys that pack horse, like the guys that pack horses know that you got to be. There's two guys in my life that really acknowledge the value of knives. Cliff's Hunter. I created this knife from iteration in the field. It has been modified and perfected for the backcountry use case. It is my belief that in terms of all around knives, this is the last knife that an elk hunter, mule deer hunter, sheep hunter, goat hunter will need to buy. Go check it out on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. In the top right, click shop, then Cliff's Hunter. All the details are there. And that's guys packing horses because they know that it could end, you could have like a bunch of dead horses or dead people if you can't get to your knife. And then spear fishermen always have their knives where they can get to them too. Because same deal, if you get like a coil of a line wrapped around you, like you could
Yeah.
die. Like in 10 seconds, you could be dead. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that
If a
makes
fish
sense.
pulls you down or whatever. And it's funny because both those groups of people will typically put their knife somewhere where they can grab it both sides of their body. You know what I mean? Um, and so it's kind of interesting. I mean, I understand why you put it in there, and that's kind of the reason that I put it in a because I could get it with both. I can get it with both hands.
Right,
Um,
right.
so it makes
Yeah,
it makes it makes sense for sure.
yeah, it's helpful. Like literally, it could be a lifesaver. It's definitely saved my life a couple times.
Yeah, just cutting ropes
Yeah,
or
being able to cut
whatever
myself
else.
loose. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, Dude, it's funny. I was talking to a buddy, and he's an older guy. And he's guided a ton. And he's telling at dinner on one of these hunts. He's telling us this story about where he was shed hunting or something, and he had like a fanny pack on, and he tripped and fell, and he got stuck. The fanny pack actually caught him, but he
Yeah.
was, like, stuck where he couldn't get out, like, in, like, the rocks,
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was, like, one of those deals where luckily he could get to his knife and he had to, like, cut his fanny pack off, but if he couldn't do that, dude, he would still be, like his skeleton would be, like, hanging up there.
Man,
You
one
know
more
what I mean?
reason to not wear a
Yeah.
fanny pack, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true too. Um, but dude, let's talk about fire. I don't think people understand who haven't tried to start a friction fire. That even for guys that know how to do it, it can be like real consuming, and there's variables to it. So give us tell us give us a rundown on that.
Yeah, so the friction fire thing, like, yeah, it's funny because it's so in a controlled environment. If you know how to do it, and I stress if you know how to do it in a controlled environment, it's so easy. And then like you take anybody that's good at it, and I'm not saying I'm not great at it. I can do it.
Sure.
But when you step out of a controlled environment and you're just like in the woods, it becomes so much like infinitely harder. And
Right.
um, yeah, so I was able to find there's a big dead cedar tree that I kind of ride by on my way into the mountains, and so I gathered some cedar off of that thing so I could make my fireboard and my spindle and all that. And in my mind, I just thought like, well, I'll be able to gather up some dry grass and whatever, and I'll be able to get a fire going. I don't think it'd be that big a deal. But after kind of the physical exertion of riding the horse in with no saddle, and then you're trying to stalk elk and do all that, and then you're without water, you're without food, and then trying to build a friction fire. It's crazy just how much harder it is. And for people that don't know, you need to be able to have like a really sturdy hand, a really stable hand to be able to hold your spindle, and you got to line your foot up on your fireboard and be able to keep a rock solid frame, and then also work the bow, when you're trying to get the friction. And so if your bow is twisted or canted or any direction, it'll throw your spindle. If your hand isn't perfectly centered up, with your little bearing block, I mean, it's just, there's so many variables to making it actually work. When it is going good, it's like just a couple of seconds that you can create a coal. But
Right.
that first night, I had a little bit of wind and some damp grass, and I got a coal, and I got a coal, and then I got a coal, and I kept getting coals. And every time I try to put them in my tinderbox, I'd just kill it. It just die.
Right.
And it's a really it's a really tough feeling when it's really cold like that, and you don't have a sleeping bag, and you don't have all those modern comforts. And for me, it's a little bit of arrogance that I just thought I'd be able to get a fire no problem. And so
Sure.
that first night is just absolutely miserable. And I'm like, man, I can't get a fire going, and I'm like miserable cold.
You can't sleep at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really humbling. I couldn't sleep. I'm rolling around. I don't have a pad or anything, so I'm just like hugging rocks, trying
Yeah,
to
yeah,
stay.
sure.
It's just, yeah, absolutely terrible. And it really makes you appreciate, how hard it must have been for everybody,
Right.
pre lighter.
Oh yeah, dude, it's pretty nuanced, man. It's like another one of those things that's so distorted in social media, man. Dude, I have a funny one to tell you on it, Cade. And I know like me and you have done friction fire. Well, when we were in the Selway doing, and oh, we should actually mention that to everybody. Me and you are guiding bear hunts in the Selway, backpack hunting. So educational component and a bear hunt, backpack focused hunts this year,
Get a cool
progressive.
bush plane flight.
Yeah, bush plane flight in, and then we're gonna progressively hunt backpack to a bush plane out. Info's on my website, info's on Jordan's website, Jordan Jonas's website, and it's also on mine, pursuitwithcliff.com. But we've got several spots open end of April, in early May. So I wanted to mention people, and me and Cade will be guiding those hunts. So go check those out if you guys are interested. But what made me think of that was we do friction fires on those trips, which are fun. And you're way better than I am, Adam. But I've done, like classical friction fires before, and it's cool. Like you get the right stuff, figure it out, like you say, like it's all about the nuances. Once you can get it figured out. But I was out here in the Caribbean, and I was like, dude, I want to figure out if you can do one here. And so one of the common ones you'll see in the Caribbean or just in like the tropics or whatever is you'll see fire plows. Are you familiar with it?
I am. I've never done it, but I am.
Yeah, so you'll watch these guys on social media, and they do it with cane, right? So like it's basically like they split cane, and then they put a little bit of a run, like a little bit of a run on in their hands, where they can slide the cane up and down. And unlike a spindle, it's actually really easy to create like a ton of pressure. You know what I mean, Cade? Like you can, because you
Yep.
can stick it down on the cane and like really get it going. And you'll watch these guys start fires in like, I mean, 20 seconds from nothing to like just, and they get them going. And so I was trying to get this down like daily for like 20 days straight. And it's hot. Like I would do it every morning, and I'd get just like coughing because all the smoke coming off of this thing, and like I knew it wasn't the tinder because I was using I could stick a lighter on it and it would be like explode. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, what is going on here? Like I cannot get these things to go, but I just never could get enough heat. You know what I mean? And finally, I messaged, and I'll leave them anonymous, but I messaged somebody on YouTube that does a lot of these, and his response to me was like, "Hey, take take the cane that you're using, the bamboo, and stick it in your air conditioner in your house. Like leave it in your house for like, for a week. And it's because the humidity in, homes here that use air conditioners is like, it's like normal. It's like 10% or something. Well, and
Oh,
outside's 80%. I did that for a week, dude. I walked outside and freaking boom, start a fire. And that's all it was. And it's like, dude, all these guys, I mean, I'm sure there's some cases that there's like tropical areas they're using bamboo or whatever where they have lower humidity and they could start one. But all these guys are doing that, dude. They're
right.
you know what I mean? And then it's funny because he told me, he's like, yeah, dude, like you could do that. He's like, other guys will put them in ovens and dry them out, or other guys will like buy it at Home Depot, like you know, the the
Kiln dried.
little, yeah, because it's those little bamboo things. They use them to hold the tiki torches, like the candles that get mosquitoes away. If you go get one of those, because they've been, like you said, clean dried or in
Kiln dried, yeah.
kiln dried. I mean, you'll start a fire like real quick. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, it's
I,
like it's funny because it puts so much weird. That's that social media effect, like when you have everything that's like in the right variables, like, oh man, look how easy it is.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's hard, man. But no, yeah, it can be is one of those things. And I think everybody should try. It can be addicting, man, to try
Yeah,
to get
yeah,
friction fires to go, you know.
yeah. It's fun. Like once you get the first one going, you're like, oh man, I got to do that again. I feel like Tom
Yeah, yeah.
Hanks from Castaway, where he's like,
Yeah.
fire. Yeah, yeah. That's how
Yeah,
it
yeah,
feels.
yeah.
It's awesome.
Which is a cool, I mean, it's a really cool thing. It's like, holy shit, like from nothing to an actual fire that can keep you warm.
Like funny anecdote on that. When I was on alone, I came this close to not bringing a fire starter so I could bring another item, and I was like, man, I don't know, that's such a it's such a time consuming deal, and I don't know this and that. And then like my third day there, I found a huge paper wasp nest. And I was
Yeah,
like,
okay.
man, are you kidding me? I could have like gone without a fire starter and I totally would have just like had fire like that every day, because I have
Yeah,
that
yeah.
super dry tinder, like whatever.
Yeah, but if you hadn't had that, you could have been, like, struggling, wasting tons of energy and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
only got like for this film that I did, I had like 6 attempts or 7 attempts at fire. I only got two. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, and then once you had a fire, did you just, like, rake your coals over every day?
Yeah, I didn't like I stacked up a huge pile of wood and I was like sleeping by the fire and I would like get cold, wake up and be like, "Oh no," and then like put wood on the fire and try to get stoked back up and then go back to sleep. And then
Yeah,
you know how pine is in the mountains. I wake up an hour later and I'm like, "Oh no,"
gone.
and I put fire, put wood back on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Dude, it's hard. It's really hard, like, because I tried over the years, dude, even in wall tents, like, trying to keep a coal in the stove so I didn't have to restart the fire in the in those light wood stoves and wall tents.
Yeah.
And without good hardwoods, man, like, people don't realize it's so hard to keep much of a fire going, or like a coal.
Right.
It could
Right.
be pretty tricky. There's kind of like an art to it to some extent, right? To get it to
Yeah,
burn
for
real
sure.
slow.
For sure. And having a good stove.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, makes a big difference. But dude, so you're doing all this stuff um while you're trying to hunt. And I think that's like
Right.
anybody who's gone on these wilderness elk hunts is like, "Oh, Jesus, dude, like it's hard enough if you just got like modern tools and that sort of thing." So, we talked about this a little bit beforehand, Cade, because I feel like it's something that you fairly uniquely don't struggle with. And that's just like this feeling of wanting to quit because of the discomfort. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I think it for guys living a modern life, um, it is the biggest challenge of wilderness elk hunting is just dealing with the discomfort. Um, like, would you have any recommendations for guys, like how they can deal with that?
So this is something I found great interest in, like throughout my adult life, and there's a phenomenon that happens in your brain where we have weighted memories, and so it's an evolutionary trait, basically, is what it is. That when things are really hard or unpleasant or negative, And everybody knows this. Like, you could have five people tell you that your hair looks great, and then you have one person tell you that your beard looks stupid, and you're like, oh man, does my beard look stupid? You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Like we weight our experiences, and we always rank our negative experiences higher, and that because of that we've survived, right? So
Right.
like when we go through a negative experience, our brain really locks in and remembers how did we overcome that so that we can do it again if it ever happens. And that's kind of where that comes from. And so I do think that um once people realize, and like, you have to you have to open yourself up and be appreciative and say that, like, okay, this is an uncomfortable experience, but when it's over, it's going to be of great value to me, and I'm going to look back on it fondly. So I think that people that can survive, like if they plan a 5 day elk hunt, right? And then or 7 day hunt or whatever, and you can make it to the last day and have, and like even if it's not fun, if you can make
Right.
it to the last day, you're gonna remember that as a really fun memory. I think if you quit early, then it kind of registers differently in your brain as something that you didn't like and then you stop doing. But if you complete what is already kind of scheduled in your mind, if you can complete from start to finish that trip, regardless of the outcome, then your brain kind of logs it as something that was like a valuable memory, even though it was maybe a negative experience. And then you look back on it fondly. And that's why you talk to a lot of guys that have done a lot of backcountry hunts and stuff. And they'll be able to tell you like in great detail about, like, man, we had this hunt where we were stuck in a blizzard and I thought we were going to die, and they'll laugh about it, and it'd be
Sure.
like, oh, like the greatest thing. I mean, shoot, you've got a couple of them, like I've got a couple of them, everybody I know has got a couple of them. They're like,
Yeah.
maybe I didn't even kill like a monster elk or deer or anything, but like I remember that trip so well because it was so miserable, and it's fun to look back on it. It makes a good story and this and that. And uh and I kind of, maybe in a strange way, have leaned into that more than other people. And that's kind of what this hunt was for me. Is it's like, okay, so I'm going to take like and make the most extreme unpleasant experience, and I'm going to force it to be fun, and I'm going to have a cool outcome. And if I don't give
Sure.
up, regardless of whether I kill an elk or not, like, it'll be a really cool thing that I have done. And now, as of recently, I've kind of figured out the power of filming these things and being able to share them with other people. And I think it's a cool experience to share, and could potentially be inspiring for other people to get out of their comfort zone and like maybe have some negative experiences in a positive way.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Dude, I think for that very reason, people should watch the video. Dude, I think in a way, it's like a good I think it's a great video. And dude, I mean, what's it got now? 30, 40,000 views or something
I had
like
like a
that?
30 something thousand views on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think these things they run with momentum. You know what I mean? So like,
Hmm.
it'll I wouldn't be surprised if the thing gets half a million views at some point. You know what I mean? Because it's unique, dude. I mean, it's a really unique elk hunting video. But having said that, it's great. It's a great video for somebody to watch before they go on a wilderness elk hunt. Because if you watch you do this hunt before you go into like a wall tent camp for 4 hours into the wilderness, when you're in that wall tent camp, you have no excuse to quit. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
reflecting on watching your video. So I think it's a great video for people to watch before they go on a trip that's would otherwise be very very trying, because you're gonna always have, or most guys have those moments of being like, oh, this is shitty. The hunting's all not that good. Why am I struggling? I want to quit or whatever. Dude, it's one of these things that I debate a lot, and I wish I had a good solution for guys. I don't When I'm in camps and stuff, I've gotten a lot better at dealing with it. I have found that the one thing that's made it when I was outfitting, actually, I would deal with it a little bit just in my own mind, and it had to do with the fact that I always had other things going on at the same time. So if I had a guide that was sick and I had to go in and guide for 4 days in a wilderness camp, I would find those situations really difficult because particularly if the hunt was hard and we were in like hard conditions, because I'd be like, man, I got a lot of their shit I got to take care of. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and it's weird how there's an interplay there, and I think that is people who have a lot going on at home, or upset wives, or a bunch of business shit going on that they haven't really taken care of. I think there's some like things get legitimately exacerbated if you have that. So I always recommend to
Yeah.
guys, like, you got to make sure you got that, you don't have a bunch of stuff that you're stressed out at home, because it'll make this whole dynamic harder. Um, but well, I guess before I go on my next thought on it, have you found that now that you have little kids, do you think about that more because you got more
Oh
going
yeah,
on at home?
I've always got that stress going on, and then yeah, I mean, definitely during the guiding season, I'm like somebody poisoned my wife's dog this year while I was guiding mule deer hunts, and it was like I'm sitting on the mountain just white knuckling my binoculars, like
Yeah,
I just like sitting there just like, oh, fucking kill you,
because you
whoever you
can't
are,
deal with it. Yeah, 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 yeah,
and then it's like, and it screws up your whole deal.
yeah.
But this is something that I like got baptized by fire through when I was on alone. Um, because Danny was pregnant whenever I left for the show, and the night before they dropped me, she miscarried,
Hmm.
and it was like this huge, just like wave of like
Stress. Yeah,
guilt and being mad and being upset and feeling bad for myself and feeling bad for her and worrying
yeah,
about her. And we talked about it over the phone. And it's like you can't change that. Like you can't change that sort of thing. And so it's something I had to deal with by myself out there, for like weeks, and
yeah. Sure.
but it was like almost a good thing for me that it was a transformative experience as a person, that like if you can overcome that, like that understanding of being like, I can't change certain things, and there's certain things that I can't change, and I have to be present for the moment right now,
Yeah.
and I can still care about things, and I can still be, involved or whatever, but I can also like say, okay, this is what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to be present in this moment. And I think that that is the most valuable thing about hunting in general, is that if you can take guys that, if they can overcome that stress of what they have going on with their business or their relationships or whatever at home, and they can table that for a minute and say, I'm going to be present in the moment right now, without my phone, without the news, without bills, without whatever. I'm going to be present in this moment right now, and I'm going to sit on this mountain, and I'm going to feel the sun on my face, and I'm going to look for deer, I'm going to look for elk, I'm going to look for bears, I'm going to do whatever I'm doing, and I'm just going to have a moment right now that I'm going to carry with me for later on in life. That like the stress is always going to be there, but I'm going to take these couple of days of this hunt, and I'm going to be present in the moment, and I'm going to like soak this experience up for what it is. And I
Right.
think that if you can overcome, those stressful things that are going on at home, and be able to be present in the moment, it's valuable for you to come home and deal with those problems, in a
Yeah,
healthy
yeah.
way.
No, I think that's a great piece of advice, Cade. And I think that, wrapping this back to the theme of your archaic video, I this dynamic we're talking about, I think it's one of the few things as hunters that is not analogous to hunters in the past. I think it's a modern problem that we probably really haven't like really evolved to develop, or develop a way to deal with psychologically. Because I think if we jumped in a time machine and we went back 200 years and we went into like a hunting camp somewhere, if you ask them like, "Hey, are you struggling with wanting to stop on this hunt and go back to the primary village?" They would look at you not even knowing what you're talking about.
Right.
Like why would I stop this? Because this is life. See, now the problem is, even me and you, we work in the hunting business, but we still live two very different lives. We live a modern life with all the bullshit and the stimulation, and then we live our outdoors life. And I don't know how really well equipped humans are to deal with that constant back and forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Um,
don't I don't either. I think that that's why. I mean, honestly, like that's a whole conversation I could go into, but I think that's a big problem with like men's mental health nowadays. Is um, everybody wants to talk about like men should talk about their feelings. I don't think in general, I don't think men need to talk about their feelings. I think men need to go outside and like have that fresh air and have those transformative experiences and not be trapped in an office. Like you weren't, like you're saying, you weren't made
right.
to like type spreadsheets. You were made to like stick a woolly mammoth to death, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah, sure.
yeah, it's like hard that your brain, is like being forced to evolve quicker than it should, because your purpose
Yeah.
is different ultimately.
Yeah, and it's like and it's a modern thing that we have to deal with. And it's really weird how it manifests like in the Western hunting world. Like I'm just talking about like clients and stuff I've dealt with. Like, this guys wanting to quit. And I mean you touch on the biggest factors, just like can they just be in the moment of like, hey, this is like the allocated time. I'm doing this. Stuff's fine at home or whatever. I'm just going to focus on my goal. And it's a challenging thing. The one thing that me and you have been able to do, I think even you to a larger extent, Cade, with like some of your background, is we've had a lot of reps at it. Like when you get a lot of reps and you get a lot, it's a lot easier for you to turn it off, to turn
Yeah.
off like the modern world, you know?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You have to like you won't. I mean, you know this better than anybody, but like you won't make it in the outfitting, hunting, guiding business like if you can't turn that switch off. You say, okay, like I'm
Yeah.
caveman now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you're gonna go do the mountain thing for a while because it's like the nature of of what you're doing. But it's a interesting and sometimes I think a very counterintuitive thing for people for hunters to deal with because it's like, why am I mean, so many guys, dude, plan these hunts for a year, 18 months, and then 24 hours into a hunt, they're like, "What? Like, I don't even like this." You know what I
right,
mean?
right.
And
Yeah,
it's like, "Nah, you do like it." See, like, some guys will say, "Kay," to me, like, "Well, what it is the guys like the idea of it, but they don't actually like hunting." I don't actually think that's the case. I
no,
think
I don't
guys
either.
I think guys like hunting universally. I think it's very rare that you're gonna take a guy, even if he hasn't been exposed to hunting, and he's gonna dislike it. He might dislike aspects of it or whatever, like, sure, but he's not gonna dislike it as a whole. But some guys can't turn off the rest of their life.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there because it's like it's inside you, like it's in your DNA. You are programmed, like
Sure.
you are a predatory animal. So like, but I don't know. I think that part of that has to do with like the ability to say like I'm done. Like if people, I don't know. I think it's really good for people. Um, I guess the way I could put this in like a metaphor that would be understanding for people that don't hunt or on the fence about it is it's like going to the gym with a personal trainer versus going to the gym by yourself. And when you go to the gym by yourself, you can just quit. Like, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
But like going on a guided hunt like that, it's like going to the gym with a personal trainer. It's like you're not done. And this is tough and you're uncomfortable, but I need you to keep going. And you're gonna feel better about it once you do, but I gotta like coax it out of you sometimes. And then once people overcome that, then they like come around, And I think that that's what a lot of it is. I think that's part of your job as a guide too, is like to know people's limits, but also say like, hey man, I'm gonna push you to do what you're capable of and not give up early on, And I think
Right.
that people that are allowed to give up early on, they're done.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And I think that dynamic you're talking about, Cade, like it's almost like a way to it's a way to kind of shortcut this issue. It's like, yeah, going on a guided hunt, you get like money committed to it, and you got the guide or whatever, like they are committed to it too, so they're going to motivate you. But I think the same thing when you do like a group, like a buddy hunt. If you got good hunting buddies, they should be like a positive influence on keeping everybody like in the hunt,
For
and
sure.
it works really great. I will say that I guess this is advice on like for everybody like picking hunting groups, the inverse can be true too. Like if you got one guy who's a bitch,
He could ruin
he
it for everybody.
yeah,
Yeah.
like he can really convince everybody else that it's a bad situation too. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So you got to be careful of that. But this brings me to one of the most intriguing things about your video, Cade, is you did it by yourself. Um, I want you to comment on that, dude, and then I got some follow on questions. Like why?
Yeah, I thought about trying to have somebody film it for me, but it just wouldn't have been the same experience. Like I really struggle with that because like man, I could produce a better film if I had somebody there to film and somebody to actually like help me get the kill shot and somebody to help me get like all the
Right.
passing by scenes with the horses. I mean, there's a massive amount that could have been helpful with having somebody else there to film it and help me. But I thought, man, then I'm gonna have to get them a saddle, and I'm gonna have to get them food, and I have to get them all this stuff, and it's gonna take away from the experience, and it's gonna take away from the authenticity. That like one, I'm gonna have always the like lingering questions of like, well, did the camera guy help him? Like everybody asked, and then number two, I'm like, it just wouldn't be this like miserable, shitty, really hard experience that I'm gonna have a lot of value for if I had somebody else that's like looking at me the whole time. It's like
Yeah.
even filming it sucked really bad. Arguably, filming it is the worst part of it because every
Yeah.
time you see me walk a long ways, I gotta walk back a long ways, and
Yeah. Oh
the
yeah.
camera's
Sure.
on. So it's like
Yeah.
so annoying. Yeah.
Dude, this is for sure because like I've done a lot of packing with horses and mules, but your water crossing scenes, I'm like, oh, dude, that sucks. Because now he's got to come back across and get the camera and then and then get his shit all together and then go back across. Like,
And you know what's funny is my bay horse broke off because she didn't want to cross. So I had to
oh,
like
okay.
go across, back, get her camera stuff. But I mean, it was just like I crossed the river like 5 times for that shot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I figured you have to because you're just trying to get like it's hard,
Yeah, it was so annoying.
really time consuming thing. But let me see what man, do we covered a lot of this stuff. It's such an interesting one. Do you have any like motivators for this stuff in terms of like people that you watch, Cade, or like inspiration?
I've always really enjoyed like Ryan Gill's stuff. You ever watched Hunt Primitive?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so like
Yep.
I have a lot of like respect for Ryan Gill and all of his stuff, and I mean his bow hunting stuff, and it's just really incredible guy with a really incredible skill set.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watch a lot of these YouTube guys, and this is the reason I started doing a couple of these hunt films is that I watch a lot of these guys, and everybody's got posting up these videos about like this like incredible hunt, and then I watch it, and everybody's like decked out head to toe in the latest and greatest like equipment, and they got laser rangefinders and rifles that shoot a mile, and everybody's lining up and shooting deer that like they don't even know what's going on. They're just like
Sure.
dumping deer across canyons and stuff, and they're making these films, and art. They're good films, but people are just like in awe of these experiences, and after all the years of guiding hunts, I'm just like, man, I don't know, it's just like it's the same thing. I've seen it a million times, and then I just kind of started like over the years for myself. I'm like, well, like it'd be cool to just go with the contents of my saddlebags, and that has kind of
Sure.
just evolved into like kind of my inspiration is to break free from the crowd and say like, hey, like the size and the size of the horns and whatever, it's not really that big a deal to me as much as it is that like I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna do something that's extremely hard and I'm gonna try to find success, and like I'm gonna share that like this is elk hunting at its core. Like it's just a guy with a bow trying to kill an elk, and for
Right.
thousands, who knows, hundreds of thousands of years, thousands of generations, like that was elk hunting. It's like I'm gonna kill an elk and then I'm gonna eat it over a fire I built with my hands. And that's just like
Yeah.
it's oddly unique, but I don't know that it should be.
Yeah, dude, I think there's I mean, one, I am like I gotta give it to you for taking that approach, Cade, because it's hard. Like me personally, man, I have the same. I think we share a lot of the same thoughts, just about like what we enjoy, the type of hunting we enjoy, and really maybe not even that, just like the type of hunting we've been exposed to. That's one of the problems with this, and this is why I just from personally I view as one of the problems is I try not to cast too much judgment, because one of the reasons I like the type of hunting that I do is just because it's the type of hunting that I do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's the type of hunting I was exposed to. So I got to like be like, oh, that's just like, I mean, for sure, dude. There's like in my mind, like there's certain type of hunts I see, and I'm like, in like, I would be dishonest if I didn't tell you that there's a little like voice sometimes in my mind, like, I know where that guy shot that bull. That's pussy shit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really like that for sure. I make that judgment, which is not fair, but given just like up until this point, what I've been exposed to, it's like how I feel about certain things. You
Right.
know
And
what I
you're
mean?
human. Right. And you're
Yeah,
human. We
yeah.
all
So
do it. We all do
yeah,
it.
so I'm
Yeah.
I'm for sure biased, you know what I mean? And like there's that element to all of this. But it's hard, man, like structurally to do what you're doing, because in the content world, like I don't film hunts, because I really just have never I've never it's never made sense to me, because there's like, in order to do it, it costs a lot of money to get camera guys and that sort of things, and that it just structurally tends to mean that you've got to get gear companies involved, and it's just like, people I don't think realize like how much there's like institutionalized structure around making those type of videos. So to do it like against the grain, it's hard, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
It's super hard.
yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. Like you could probably go out and raise 10 grand, 15 grand from a few gear companies to send two camera guys with you to go do a hunt. Like, you could do it. But, you just go out, put the word out, and you do it, because it's good advertising for these gear companies to do that. And that's really what the model is. It maybe not that exact method of funding, but basically.
Right. Yeah. And that's like one of my big deciding factors on these films. Like, I just want to do something that's like authentic to the core.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know. You know. And it's
Yep.
like, if I did it with the other gear, like, it wouldn't be me.
Yeah, what's a unique, I mean, that's what makes it unique, dude. You know what I mean? Um, and so I think it's awesome, man. Do you got any plans for like another one? Okay, are you gonna try to do one of these like once a year? Or what's your
Man, I
what's your
don't
thought
know.
process?
It like, so when I did my 80 Mile Elk film, it was like it took a lot away from the hunt. I wasn't really like, when I did that film, which it did pretty well, but like I did the film and I was happy with it, but like it took so much of my presence away from the
Mhm.
hunt. You know, where I like to be present is something I like to enjoy. And then so I didn't really know that I wanted to do it again, and I kind of like struggled with this film, and I did it, but this one was so hard that the filming is kind of like, it's so intertwined in the film, and like how hard it was, that I found a lot of value in that, and I enjoyed it. And so
Is
I
that
don't
kind of
know.
kind of part of the challenge for you?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yep.
was. And so I don't know. I've been debating on maybe I do another one next year. It just depends. I don't know. I've got such a crazy busy guidance season already coming together next year, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to have time to do it. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, dude, like part of this like whole structure of this type of content is it's risky. It's risky that, like, what if on this hunt, like, you ran into like a practical obstacle where you basically had to quit? Like, what if you couldn't get a fire started, and then like it snowed 18 inches or
Right.
2 feet on you? Like, you might have, like, from a survival standpoint, needed to leave, right? Or you just couldn't find elk, right? Like
Yeah, yeah. I
it.
mean, in this film, it almost happened to me because on the day that I was trying to stalk that bull, I realized I was like out of batteries, that I had forgotten a
Mm,
bunch of my batteries in my truck at the trailhead. And so
right.
I was just like, I had this like horrific moment of like, man, I've got hours and hours of footage, and I'm like really close to, like, I think I might get it done today. And I don't even know if I have enough batteries to film another 24 hours. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, you know?
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, those things can arise when you're doing it solo. It's like not a controlled environment. Like it's tricky. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. It's really tricky. Yeah.
For sure. But dude, I'm gonna let people like tell you where all your social media and stuff, Cade. But before we do that, remind people to go sign up for our Selway hunts because they are gonna be sweet. But I'm gonna show people my favorite scene, dude. Are you cool with that?
All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm curious
It,
to see.
and if you if you get like a copyright claim on your YouTube video, you can't. You have to just ignore it.
Okay.
Does that because it might pop when I post this
Okay.
up.
Okay.
You know, it'll just be a short clip, but
Okay. Yeah.
just ignore it so you don't get the this interview taken
All
down.
right. Nuked.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, fuck Cliff." Yeah, go after him or whatever. But, I get those every once in a while because people will use little clips of things, and I'll
Yeah.
go through like, I've had guys just straight rip off whole videos, and then I'm like, "Oh, well, no." But I don't care if people take little chunks. Let's see if this will pop up for us. Oh, yeah. You know the scene that I'm gonna show everybody?
All right.
It's your reaction, dude. Hopefully this works. Can you hear it?
Yep.
This is my favorite part, dude.
Oh, the cow's taking off, man. He ran straight into those cows, and then
Oh,
I
okay.
lost him. So I started panic.
Which is always the case bow hunting, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then like an idiot, I've been guiding hunts for years, man. Like an idiot.
Hold on, dude. This is my favorite part. Oh, I lost my hat. That's my favorite right there, dude.
Oh man, like just pure joy.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, dude. Let me pause it here. Hopefully the audio and stuff got all recorded. But no, dude, you couldn't make that up. So I thought that was cool.
God, I was so pumped. But so like an idiot, man, I've been guiding hunts for years. And the first thing I did after he disappeared with the cows, I was like, I'm gonna go down there and look. And I just like walked past all the blood trail and everything. And then I get
Oh,
halfway
sure.
down there and I was like, man, I didn't even look for blood. Like I gotta turn around and then I went back and I'm trying to find blood and it's like all discombobulated. It's like
Right.
part of that dehydration and everything. And then I'm like, I gotta sit here for a minute. I'm just gonna jump him and he's gonna run off somewhere, Then
Yeah, it's wide
but
open country too.
yeah, yeah, man, I almost missed. I had some like crazy target panic because the shot. So I was setting my camera up and I was like, that bull is like right here, and he like popped his head up and I could see his horns like coming across this. I was like, oh no, no, no! So I like dropped down. I was like laying on the ground, and then I crawled up there, and I in my head I expected him to be like 30 yards or so, like down, kind of wandering around. But he must have just like gotten up, turned around, and then like taken 2 steps or something where I
Ah,
couldn't see
okay.
him. Because when I was drawn back, I was looking like too far, and
Ah,
so
okay.
I was like,
He's right there.
yeah. And then when I got up, I was like, oh man, he's right there, and like So I just released, and then it's like typical bow hunting, right? Like I released and I was like, was that a good shot?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, sure.
I was so
Didn't see it, yeah.
amped up and adrenaline and everything, and then he ran all the way down into the cows, and it's like, oh yeah, I definitely got him, or maybe I missed. I don't know. It's like just
Yeah,
so
sure.
like so
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
excited,
sure.
but yeah, it worked out, man. What a crazy deal.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's wild, dude. And with your recurve. You're an interesting guy in that regard too, Kate, because you rifle hunt and bow hunt. I'm gonna do a video on this subject, but dude, I feel like this is becoming like more and more a division amongst hunters. Like you're a bow
Yeah.
hunter or you're a rifle hunter, particularly amongst the elk hunting community, which I think is kind of hilarious.
Dude, it's so funny because I'll post videos and stuff, and I'll like try to share stuff about like rifle hunting tips, and like the bow hunter, the compound bow guys, like
Yeah,
come
yeah,
for me, and they're always like, "You're not a real hunter until you use a bow," and it's like, dude, I use a recurve. Like I don't know, like I just
yeah,
because I
yeah.
also use a rifle doesn't make me like I think that's the problem. Is like I don't care how you hunt. If you're having fun and you're not wounding stuff, then like I don't care, man. Good for you. Like good for you.
Yeah, I think Cade is like hunters tend to have like a certain type of personality, and then they tend to be men, and there's like ego oriented in it, and there's like always this like scoreboard kind of like pecking order. I think we naturally try to do, and
Yeah.
we've tried to wrap that in to hunting with this whole like weapon choice thing.
Right.
Um, and I think it's really a weird thing that people do. You know, I because, dude, it kind of comes back to our original or conversation we had earlier. Like quantitatively, weapon choice is kind of irrelevant because I mean,
Right.
killing. I mean, I've guided archery hunts that were substantially easier than rifle hunts I've guided, like way easier because of like where they're at, the time of year, whatever. And then obviously vice versa. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
for sure. It drives me crazy when people get all like on a high horse about that. And it's something that I try to like combat a lot. That like there's staggered seasons, there's different stuff. Like I've guided hunts for animal like man, perfect example. Perfect example. Killing a high country mule deer buck, a big buck in September, way harder with a rifle, way harder than killing a rutting mule deer buck with a bow.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
just
Yeah, yeah.
that's just how it is. But it's like, but people get all worked up about weapon choice and all that. And it's like, man, with these modern compound bows too, it's like I laugh with all the compound shooting guys that hate crossbow hunters when it's like some of these new compound bows
Yeah.
are freaking laser beams. Like
Yeah,
these
yeah.
bows are so nice. People are, I mean, they're stacking arrows, and it's like, I mean, really, like it's like,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think like, yeah, I mean, this is like we could have a whole nother podcast on it, Kate, because it's such an interesting thing. But in the end, dude, it comes down to people wanting to do this thing that's like, I use this, so therefore I'm better than you, Cade. Or,
yep,
or I'm better than you, Cliff, because like people always bring it up to me. They're like, so much of your content is rifle oriented. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, my content is elk killing oriented. I don't I guide more archery like, historically, dude, I've guided more archery hunts than I have rifle hunts.
right.
Like, sure. And,
That
like, if anything, I'm an archery elk guy. But the thing is like, when I'm an archery elk guy and I'm a rifle elk guy, I got the same goal. It's to kill elk. I don't really give a shit about the marginal, like, 8 feet per second additional you get because of your whatever limbs on your bow. Like, I
right,
don't
right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, and I'm not gonna it's not like I'm not saying like there's people who love to focus on that, great content out there. That's not my thing. But that doesn't mean that I'm not an archery guy. Like I get these I mean, and people can send me whatever, like it's all just context. So I'm not like offended by it, but I get a lot of them. They're like, "Oh, when are you gonna do some archery elk content?" I'm like, "What? What are you
Right,
talking about?
right,
All my content applies to archery, dude. Like it's
right,
elk hunting.
right.
Like I don't know what you're talking
You know,
about.
it's funny too, like not to just totally go off on a tangent, but like it's funny too, and I'm sure maybe you have experienced this, maybe you haven't, but I feel like over the years I've had a lot of hunters that like show up and when they introduce themselves, they give me like a rundown on like how amazing their like rifle setup or their bow setup is. And like every time I answer is like, can you kill an elk with it? You know,
Yeah, it's
like
like a
can you
baseline.
can
Doesn't
you
matter.
actually like have you actually shot it? You know, that's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. It can be challenging, Kate, I think, as a guide. Because as a guide, there's like this expectation that you're up to speed. like you're up to speed on like the modern, and I'm like, dude, I'm not like, oh, do you like the, the new carbon Hoyt or the VTM better? And then what like do you like the 34 or 30? It's like, dude, I don't keep
Dude,
track of this shit.
that happens to me all the time. People trying to talk to me about their brand new Hoyt, whatever, and I'm like holding my 1960s model fiberglass bow. Like, I don't know, man. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And it's not, dude, I mean, I'm not saying that the equipment's not getting better. I'm just saying that like it's not like it, I only have, my hard drive and my brain's only so big. And that kind of stuff from my perspective really doesn't move the needle. I mean, it just doesn't. And so it's a very interesting thing because it moves the needle in terms of like where people fall or they perceive they fall in this spectrum. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Um, so I think it's really an interesting deal. And yeah, it's across the board. Such a funny thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Touchy subject.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But you're just out there going hard, dude. No saddle, recurve. You're just trying to make it so it's like undebatable.
Right.
That's
I
what
think that's like, isn't that the fun of it though? It's like, so like,
yeah, yeah,
back to what we were talking about with like, you watch those videos and you're kind of judgmental. Well, I could do that. It's like,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
put your money where your mouth is, before you
yeah,
like.
yeah, sure,
So, anyways, I just thought it was a fun chance for me to like, all right, I'm gonna go do something that's ridiculous. Like I said that in the end of the video, I'm like, it seems ridiculous as because it is. Like it's stupid. Like the whole concept
sure.
of that was dumb. I had somebody on Reddit or something that was like, what's the benefit of not carrying a water bottle? Like there is absolutely no benefit to not carrying a water bottle. Like that's the whole point. Just enjoy it
Yeah,
for what it is,
sure.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the problem is you can extend all these arguments even to like a less extreme elk hunt. Like, why would you go do that type of hunt? Why would you not just go buy some meat?
Right, right, exactly.
It's
Like
like,
I
yeah,
don't
it's like
know.
well, that's not the point. It's like a whole, it's
Right,
just structure we create for ourselves, within these
right.
challenges. So it's all good, man. But hey, tell people where they can follow you, Cade. Where they
Yeah,
can find the video, all that stuff.
yeah. So a video is up on YouTube. It's called Archaic, the world's hardest elk hunt. You can find me on Instagram at Colin Cade Cole or Facebook Cade Cole. That's kind of it. I'm not super big on that. I need to get on the X. I see you trying to push everybody onto the
Yeah,
X.
dude. I finally got like a little momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should get on there. I don't know, kid. Like, I mean, I think it's a fun platform because you don't have to worry about everything getting. You do like
Right.
Instagram and stuff, dude. Like, it's weird, man. Like, I don't know how much you've gotten hit with it, but as I've gotten bigger on there, the things that get me in trouble are things that like I would never think are an issue. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and so the problem is it's like it's kind of nice to be on X because it's just like you don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
Like
no, I feel that. A lot of my stuff has definitely like my reach and everything is it's so volatile. Like sometimes
yeah.
it's good. And I post stuff that doesn't I'll post stuff that's like kind of dumb and it'll do real well. And then you post something that you think is really informative and great, and it's like, well, it's got too much blood in it. So like, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of the one of the problems with that I found, Cade, with a lot of the social media platforms is virality tends to be like on Instagram, the virality tends to be correlated with the interest of a certain demographic, and it's young people. So if you do something that like a 15-year-old thinks is interesting, your chances of it going viral is like 100-fold. And so that's why you see a lot of kind of dumb shit go
Right.
catch fire. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it makes
like
sense.
yeah, like a moose smashing a guy or whatever. Like people love that shit because it's like 15, 16-year-old kids. And they,
Right.
and there's a big demographic, so like it hits them. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and you see less of that on X. I like that too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like it's trying to figure out like where it makes sense to post. But yeah, dude, get on there.
I'll have
Dude,
to get
I
on
think
there.
YouTube's one of the best communities, I think, man.
See, and I just like YouTube just feels so foreign to me, but I need to do better about it. I need to do better about it.
Yeah, you'll start crushing it with all these type of videos. But dude, I'll let you go. Thank you everyone that watched, and we'll catch you later.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, kid. If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.